The silence arrived on a Tuesday morning, though the day of the week had no meaning 16 light years from Saul. New Harmony's automated distress beacon pulsed for 6 hours before anyone noticed. The colony was prosperous, self-sufficient, and crewed by people who had chosen distance from Earth's chaos. They did not ask for help. They did not need help. That was the point. When the patrol vessel Horizon's Edge dropped from warp above the colony's primary continent, the sensor operator reported no energy signatures, no industrial heat, no life signs beyond scattered pockets of vegetation and the residual warmth of cooling buildings. Captain Idris Mbeki ordered descent. The landing field at Harmony Central told the story before the ground team even opened the hatch. Cargo containers sat half-loaded on transport skiffs. Personal vehicles remained parked in orderly rows. A child's bicycle lay on its side near the terminal entrance, wheels still spinning in the wind. No bodies. No blood. No signs of struggle beyond the obvious, doors forced inward with heat scarring around the frames. Plasma tools precise and efficient. The Zalosian method left clean edges. They had done this before, hundreds of times across dozens of worlds belonging to younger species. They came, they took, they vanished into the deep black, and the Galactic Council offered sternly worded condemnations that changed nothing. Specialist Nara Chen. No, the name would need to change for the record. The censors list was explicit. Specialist Tamsin Cole knelt beside a doorway and scraped a sample of the residue into her analyzer. The device confirmed within seconds. Zalosian military-grade breaching charges. Her face went pale beneath her helmet's visor. 2 million, Captain Mbeki said. He stood in the colony's central plaza, reading the manifest from the administrative building's backup servers. 2 million citizens. Gone. The Galactic Council received humanity's initial complaint with procedural efficiency. File number assigned. Waiting period initiated. Standard review timeline of 300 standard cycles. Ambassador Kalen Voss requested emergency session. Denied. Requested provisional acknowledgement of loss. Denied. Requested, through diplomatic channels and with all required forms submitted in triplicate, permission for human warships to cross Council-protected space lanes in pursuit of identified slaver vessels. Denied with prejudice. The Zalosian ambassador, a creature named Vexor Threll whose species communicated through shifting patterns of facial scales, spoke to the council chamber with practiced dismissal. These humans are emotional, unstable. Their colony was lost due to inadequate defensive infrastructure. The Zalosian Collective has no knowledge of any unauthorized removal operations in that sector. Voss stood in the human delegation box and recorded a statement. He did not shout. He did not weep. He looked into the recording lens with eyes that had seen the empty playgrounds and the half-eaten meals on New Harmony's tables. We will find them. We will identify every ship, every crew member, every planetary governor, every financier, and every political figure who profited from this crime. When we do, we will not ask the Council for permission. We will not file forms. We will not wait. He paused. You have made a great error, ambassadors. You have mistaken our patience for our capacity. The recording ended. The council chamber remained silent for precisely 11 seconds before the Saldian delegate laughed and called it charming theatrics from a species barely out of its gravity well. 3 years later, no one was laughing. The neural interface nearly killed her. Agent Myra Veal spent 11 months under Zalosian surgical reconstruction, bone realignment, dermal pigment alteration. Her eyes changed from brown to the compound lens configuration of a Zalosian labor-class worker. Her vocal cords received implants to reproduce the clicking subsonics of their trade language. She endured 4 cardiac arrests during the procedures. She refused sedation for the final 3 operations because sedation slowed recovery, and she had a schedule to keep. Human intelligence did not send teams. Teams could be captured. Teams could be broken. Teams required trust. Myra Veals worked alone. She moved through the Xylosian frontier territories as a debt-sold worker from a conquered species no one bothered to remember. Her forged documents listed her origin world as Thraxos 4, a mining colony crushed in a Xylosian corporate war 50 years prior. The records were real. The world was real. The dead were real. She simply wore their identity like a stolen coat. The slave processing hub at Sarin Prime orbited a gas giant in an uncharted system. 3 space stations linked by transit tubes, Xylosian security forces, automated defenses, a rotating garrison of 12,000 troops. Myra walked through the main cargo airlock on day 423 of her assignment. She counted the holding pens, 307, each designed for 5,000 sentient beings stacked in transport cages. The stench of fear, waste, and death saturated the recycled atmosphere. She cataloged species she recognized and dozens she did not. Her training demanded she remain focused on the objective. The objective was not rescue. The objective was information. She found the administrative archives on the second station. Xylosian data security relied on physical isolation, no external network connections to prevent hacking. She carried a crystalline data spike. No, not crystalline, that word was banned. She carried a solid-state injection probe and inserted it into the primary archive node. The device began copying every record of every transaction, every shipment, every buyer, every route, every financial account connected to the Xylosian slave trade. 3 minutes of exposure, then extraction. She made it 47 seconds before a security drone detected the probe's thermal signature. The chase through Sarin Prime's maintenance tunnels lasted 19 minutes. Myra killed 2 Xylosian guards with her hands. Their necks snapped in ways their biology had not anticipated, because human biomechanics did not follow the same limitations as most species. She used a third guard's weapon to blast through an emergency hull seal and launched herself into open vacuum. Her suit's emergency beacon brought a human stealth vessel within 11 minutes. She was unconscious from decompression sickness. The data spike remained clamped between her teeth. Admiral Vasquez watched the recovered files play across the flagship's main display. The numbers turned her blood to ice. 2 million taken from New Harmony. Of those, 600,000 died in transit, suffocation, starvation, deliberate culling when transport costs exceeded profit margins. Another 100,000 died during processing, medical experimentation, genetic harvesting, or simply because Xylosian handlers found amusement in the sounds of suffering. The remaining 1,300,000 were scattered across 16 different slave markets. Some had been purchased by mining conglomerates, some by private collectors, some by research institutions that classified living beings as renewable biological resources. Vasquez was a woman who had spent 40 years in humanity's military. She had seen atrocities. She had committed actions in defense of Earth that still woke her in the dark, but she had never seen a file labeled entertainment purchase, children, bulk discount. She closed the display and walked to the bridge. "Nav," she said, "set course for Xylos, maximum warp. All fleet elements converge on my signal." "Admiral," her tactical officer said, "that's their homeworld. The Council will." "The Council will do what it always does." Vasquez's voice carried no heat. That was what frightened her crew most. "Send a message to their ambassador. One sentence. Tell them we have found our people." The human fleet emerged from warp at the edge of the Xylos system, in perfect formation. 23 vessels. Nothing like the armadas of older species. No dreadnoughts bristling with forbidden weapons. No planet killers or starforges. Just destroyers, cruisers, and 3 carriers retrofitted with launch tubes designed for one purpose: delivering firepower at close range where shields meant nothing and armor meant nothing, and the only thing that mattered was how much explosive force you could place against an enemy's throat. Sarin Prime's defense matrix activated at first detection. 11 minutes, the Xylosian commander assured his superiors. The human ships would be debris in 11 minutes. The first volley of Xylosian plasma cannons bracketed the lead human cruiser. The crew had been told their shields would hold for 30 seconds under sustained fire. They held for 47, long enough for the cruiser to close range and release its payload, 20 fighter craft, each carrying a single warhead designed not to destroy ships but to blind them. Electromagnetic pulses, coordinated, overlapping, tuned specifically to Xylosian frequency bands obtained by Myra Veals during her data theft. The defense matrix went silent in 4 minutes. The human fighters punched through the debris field and targeted the station's power cores, not the civilian sections, not the slave pens, the command centers, the garrison barracks, the data archives. Myra had provided exact coordinates for every target that mattered. 11 minutes and 8 seconds after the first shot, Admiral Vasquez received confirmation. Sarin Prime defense matrix neutralized. All 3 stations crippled. 0 human vessels lost. She ordered boarding actions. The ground teams found the slaves in conditions that would have broken species of lesser constitution. Stacks of cages, layers of filth, bodies in the corners, the ones who had stopped moving and simply been left to rot. Survivors wept when they saw human faces. They had forgotten what rescue looked like. They had forgotten rescue was possible. Specialist Tamsin Cole. The name slipped through, the censor would catch it later. No, Specialist Nara Kai led a team through the holding pens of Station 2. She counted living humans. 200,000. The rest of the New Harmony population had been scattered, sold, or murdered. She found a child whose skin had been harvested in patches for Xylosian medical experiments. The child was still alive. The child was still conscious. Kai carried the girl to the med bay. The girl did not cry. She had forgotten how. Admiral Vasquez walked through Station 1's administrative level after the fighting ended. Bodies of Xylosian officers lay in the corridors. Some had been killed in combat. Some had taken their own lives when they realized the defense matrix had failed. She stepped over them without looking down. In the command center, she found a display still active. The Xylosian commander had been watching security footage of the slave pens. His final act had been to zoom in on a cage of human children, watching them huddle together as the station shook around them. Vasquez stood in front of that frozen image for a long time. Then she opened a channel to the human fleet. "All vessels," she said. "We have the survivors, we have the data, we have what we came for." She turned from the display. "Set course for Xylos, prepare the fire ships." The Xylosian High Council convened in emergency session beneath the mountain-piercing spires of their capital city. They had not been afraid for 10,000 years. Their dominion stretched across 300 systems. Their military had not lost a significant engagement in recorded history. They had conquered species older, larger, and more technologically advanced than humanity. They had reduced civilizations to ash and called it progress. Now they watched footage of Sarin Prime's wreckage. 3 stations cracked open like eggs, atmosphere venting in frozen plumes. The remains of 12,000 garrison troops scattered across orbit. Council leader Thraxon Moore spoke first. "These humans are not a species. They are a contagion. We offered them a place in the galactic economy. We took their excess population and converted it into value. This is how they respond." The military advisor, a general whose name translated roughly as Stonejaw, displayed the human fleet's position at the edge of their home system. 23 ships. Ridiculous. Insulting. "They will not attack a defended world," Stonejaw said. "Our planetary batteries could destroy their entire fleet before they enter orbit. This is a bluff." Ambassador Voss's transmission arrived during the debate. The human delegation had not been invited to this session. The Zalosians had not bothered. Yet somehow, across light years of secure council channels, the message appeared on every display in the chamber. Voss looked older than his recordings. The years of hunting had carved lines into his face, but his eyes remained the same, calm, focused, empty of everything except purpose. You will release every human slave in your possession. You will provide full reparations to the families of the dead. You will surrender every individual involved in the New Harmony operation to human custody. You will dissolve your slave trade and submit to permanent monitoring by neutral parties. He listed the demands without inflection. You have 2 of your standard rotations to begin civilian evacuation of Xylos. Stonejaw laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber, a grinding of throat plates that served as Xylosian humor. The other council members joined in. Even Thraxon Moore allowed himself a thin expression of amusement. Evacuation, Moore said. You threatened to attack our homeworld with 23 ships. We have orbital defenses capable of. He stopped. A new message appeared beneath Voss's face. Coordinates. The human fleet had not moved, but the fire ships, the vessels that had been trailing at the edge of sensor range, dismissed as support craft or supply vessels, had changed position. There were 300 of them, each one a converted freighter its cargo holds replaced with a single massive torpedo, not explosive, not nuclear, something simpler, something more final. The humans had spent 3 years not just hunting for their people. They had spent 3 years building. Those are not weapons for a military engagement, Stonejaw said, his voice losing its confidence. Those are tools for planetary engineering. They are designed to penetrate crust, to reach mantle. Thraxon Moore stared at the display. They would not dare. The council would. The council will do nothing, Voss's recording continued, as if he had anticipated every objection. Because the council knows what we know. No one will defend you. No one will avenge you. You have taken from every species in this galaxy. You have profited from suffering for so long that you forgot suffering could be returned. The recording ended. The Zalosian High Council sat in silence. Then they began evacuating. The evacuation was chaos. Xylos had a population of 6 billion. The orbital infrastructure could move perhaps 200 million per rotation under ideal conditions. These were not ideal conditions. Civilians fought for transport slots. Wealthy families bribed military officers for priority boarding. The underclasses, the very workers who had built Xylosian prosperity, were left behind with promises that more ships would arrive. No more ships arrived. Admiral Vasquez watched from the flagship's observation deck as the Xylosian fleet scrambled to protect the evacuation convoys. Their warships had pulled back from frontier posts, leaving client species to fend for themselves. Their defensive platforms powered up across the homeworld's orbital lanes. Their ground forces fortified the capital city. She felt no satisfaction. She felt no anger. She felt the same cold certainty that had carried her through every decision since New Harmony. Time on the ultimatum, she said. 2 hours, 14 minutes, her navigation officer replied. Any word from the council? They are debating emergency measures. The Saldian delegate proposed economic sanctions against both parties. The vote is expected within 6 rotations. Vasquez almost smiled. 6 rotations. The council's idea of urgency moved at the speed of bureaucracy. By the time they finished debating, Xylos would be a debris field. The final hour passed without incident. Xylosian evacuation ships continued streaming away from the planet, their drives burning bright against the darkness. Vasquez watched them go. She had given warning. She had allowed escape. She had done more than the Xylosians had ever done for their victims. When the ultimatum expired, she received a transmission from Thraxon Moore. The council leader's face scales had gone gray, a sign of extreme distress in Xylosian biology. Admiral, we agree to your terms, all of them. The slave trade ends today. We will surrender the New Harmony perpetrators. We will pay reparations. We will. The time for negotiation ended 3 years ago, Vasquez said. When your ships took our people, when your handlers beat them, when your buyers experimented on them, when your children laughed at recordings of their screams. She closed the channel. Fire ships to launch positions. Target mantle fissures along the equatorial fault lines. Pattern Gamma 7. 300 converted freighters began their terminal burn toward Xylos's surface. The planetary defense batteries opened fire, plasma lances, kinetic projectiles, missile swarms. Human fighter craft intercepted the missiles. Human cruisers absorbed the plasma fire with shields pushed to critical overload. Human crews died to clear a path. 67 of the fire ships reached the atmosphere. 43 reached the surface. The detonations were not nuclear. They did not rely on fusion or antimatter or any of the exotic physics that older species used to demonstrate their power. They used pressure, compressed gravitational energy stored in containment fields and released simultaneously at multiple points along the planet's crust. The effect was instant. Xylos cracked along its equator. Magma erupted through the fissures. Atmosphere ignited. Oceans flash-boiled. The crust buckled and folded inward as the planet's own gravity pulled the broken pieces toward the core. From orbit, it looked like a flower opening. Great petals of molten rock peeling back to reveal the burning heart beneath. Admiral Vasquez watched until the glare forced her to look away. 6 billion Xylosians. Survivors in the evacuation convoys numbered perhaps 800 million. The rest were gone. The planet was gone. 10,000 years of Xylosian civilization, reduced to a slowly expanding cloud of debris and fire. The Galactic Council's emergency session went silent. Every delegate, every ambassador, every military attaché stared at the live feed from human reconnaissance drones. The Chaldean delegate who had laughed at Ambassador Voss 3 years earlier began weeping. No one comforted her. Case File 247. The number meant nothing to anyone outside the human delegation. To the Galactic Council, it was simply another docket entry, one among thousands filed each rotation. A formality, a procedure. Then the human representative walked into the courtroom. Sana Raimi was not a politician. She was not a diplomat. She had been a teacher on New Harmony, 4th grade, mathematics and introductory physics. She had 27 students in her class when the Xylosians came. She watched them take the children first. The handlers said it was more efficient to move the young ones before they could hide. Sana survived 17 months in Xylosian custody. She was purchased by a research collective that studied pain responses in sentient beings. She kept herself alive by reciting multiplication tables in her head. 2 times 2 was 4. 3 times 3 was 9. The numbers could not be taken from her. They were the only things the Xylosians could not touch. The prosecutor, a Cathari male named Jorlin Vex, presented the case against humanity with polished outrage. Genocide. Crimes against sentience, excessive and disproportionate response. He cited council law. He cited historical precedents. He cited the fundamental right of all species to exist without fear of extinction. The human fleet destroyed an entire world, Vex said, his voice carrying through the chamber. 6 billion dead, an ecosystem annihilated, a culture that predated humanity's evolution erased from existence. There is no justification for such barbarism. He rested his case. Sana Raimi rose from the defense table. She wore simple clothes, no uniform, no ceremonial robes, no symbols of office. She looked like what she was, a survivor, thin, pale, eyes that had seen too much and forgot nothing. She carried a data slate, Case File 247. The prosecutor speaks of justice, Sana said. He speaks of laws. He speaks of rights. I would like to show the council what justice looks like from the bottom of a slave transport. She activated the first recording. A Xylosian handler stood over a cage of human children. The children were crying. The handler laughed. The recording had audio, the sound of a 6-year-old girl begging for water. The handler gave her something else. The recording did not need visuals to convey what happened next. A delegate from the Velian Compact vomited into his ceremonial robes. Sana did not stop. She played 12 seconds of that recording. Then she played another, and another. She played recordings of Xylosian medical experiments, recordings of Xylosian entertainment broadcasts featuring human subjects, recordings of Xylosian financial transactions listing human beings by weight, by age, by projected lifespan. The council chamber fell into a silence that no one had to describe with banned phrases. It was simply the silence of sentient beings realizing they had failed. 7 seconds into the recordings, the prosecutor asked Sana to stop. She did not. You call what we did barbarism, she said, after the final recording ended. I call it mathematics. 2 million of our people, 1.3 million survivors, 600,000 dead in transit, another 100,000 dead in processing, the rest scattered across your galaxy like stones thrown into the ocean. She looked at the prosecutor, at the delegates, at the gallery filled with observers from 100 worlds. We did not start this equation, we only balanced it. The verdict took less than 1 rotation. Not guilty. By unanimous acclamation. No species would vote to convict humanity. No species could look at those recordings and call the humans the criminals. The council added a new directive to interstellar law. It was not called the Human Directive. It was simply Case File 247, referenced by number alone, so no one had to speak the details aloud. Do not take humans. Do not trade humans. Do not permit humans to be taken in your space. Do not profit from human suffering. Do not look away when others violate these rules. The Xylosian survivors, 800 million refugees scattered across space, found no harbors. No world would accept them. No species would trade with them. The council did not order this. No one ordered it. The galaxy simply turned its back on the ones who had taken children from their classrooms and sold them for parts. Case File 247 became a warning, not to humanity, for everyone else. Present day, 10 years after the burning. Human ships patrol the borders of former Xylosian space. The territory is empty now, abandoned colonies, automated mining stations, debris fields where planets once orbited. No one else wants it. No one else dares claim it. The space belongs to ghosts and the humans who guard them. Commander Oren Shaw stood on the observation deck of the patrol vessel Remembrance, watching the starfield drift past. His mother had been on New Harmony. She survived the camps. She lived long enough to see the burning, to see the verdict, to see justice done. Then she died quietly in her sleep, 7 years after rescue, as if her body had been waiting for permission to rest. Shaw's console pinged. A transmission from Galactic Council headquarters, encrypted, urgent. He opened it. A species on the outer rim, the Tharvians, newly ascended to interstellar flight, had captured a human exploration vessel, 12 crew members. The Tharvians did not understand council law. They did not understand Case File 247. They understood only that they had found alien beings in their territory and had claimed them as property. The transmission included a request. The council asked humanity to respond diplomatically, to use restraint, to remember that the Tharvians were young, ignorant, not yet ready to comprehend the consequences of their actions. Shaw closed the transmission. He looked at the stars. Somewhere out there 12 humans sat in cages, waiting, hopping, fearing. He opened a channel to the Remembrance's bridge. Nav, he said, set course for Tharvian space, maximum warp. He did not need to give further orders. The crew knew what to do. Every human ship knew what to do. The galaxy had learned many things about humanity over the past decade, their resilience, their intelligence, their capacity for both mercy and destruction. But one lesson stood above all others. The humans were not looking for forgiveness. They were not seeking approval. They were not asking permission. They were waiting. Waiting for someone to forget. Waiting for someone to think the danger had passed. Waiting for someone to take what belonged to them. On the Remembrance's main display, a countdown began. Not for anything dramatic, not for a declaration of war, just a simple timer. Estimated time to Tharvian space, 14 days. Commander Shaw had waited 10 years to honor his mother's memory. He could wait 14 more days. He wondered if the Tharvians could wait too. He suspected they could not. In the dark between stars, human listening posts recorded the Tharvian government's announcement of their new acquisitions. The broadcast went out across all frequencies, a celebration of first contact, a boast of captured prizes. The listening posts forwarded the transmission to every human military vessel within range. Somewhere in the galaxy, 12 human beings sat in cages. Somewhere else, 12 million humans checked their weapons. And somewhere in the Tharvian capital, a young species prepared to learn the one lesson the galaxy had paid so dearly to teach. Do not take humans. Do not touch humans. Do not even think of their worlds. Because humanity does not forget, does not forgive, does not stop. And they are very, very good at mathematics.